Brad. We are back on a week that, if not for today, I literally don't know what we were going to talk about.
We talked about that this morning. We're like, literally nothing happened. And then all of a sudden today, two Giants things happen because that's the way I think the Giants do work on Mondays. They either do work on Monday mornings or 5 minutes after we record on whatever day it is we decide to record that week. That's how it works.
There was like literally one thing that you sent me earlier, like, oh, there's talk about Jeff Kent and, him probably doing better in his last year of eligibility for the Hall of Fame. And I was like, yeah, that'll be fun. But then what are we going to do for like the rest of it? And so thankfully the Giants made a trade today and they also made a free agent signing. So we'll talk about that. But since we do have a couple minutes here, I just want to mention the other teams that we cover in this network. The 49ers are headed to the wild card. I think they call it the super wild cards weekend or something like that.
Yeah, the Rams had the first Monday night playoff game last year. And that was weird, but it was fun because then you get like the whole day to yourself and your game. And I think that was the Rams and Cardinals game.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was enjoyable. I mean, that was like, the whole day kind of led up to it. And then this year, if you are a I guess county worker, city worker, I don't know. I honestly don't know how holidays work for the rest of the world because I've been working for the county for like 18 years. So we get Monday, we get MLK Day off.
There you go.
So you have that whole day off and then a Monday night playoff game. But do you know when you guys play? Are you guys Saturday?
The Niners play Saturday, the afternoon game. So they played Sunday, so they only have 6 days, but they really played a dress rehearsal to the playoffs. The Cardinals are pretty much done. Cliff Kingsbury just got fired today. And so the Niners and Seahawks, I feel like we owe the Seahawks over the years. They've been really tough on us in the playoffs, including one Richard Sherman talking about Michael Crabtree in a close one.
I love that. Him and Aaron Andrews, that's like that's just broadcasting gold will live on forever. That's one of the greatest.
I listened to a podcast where she was a guest and she was talking about that moment. And she said, like you said, it's kind of it's a meme now, right? It'll be played anytime Richard Sherman is mentioned. Someone will play that as well as the face that he made when Russ threw the interception to the Patriots at the 1 yard line. But she said that that's one of the moments she wishes she could have back because she doesn't think that she was that professional. Like she reacted facially in an expression that she says today, if I was doing it today, I would have dealt with that a little bit differently. But then you wouldn't get the moment. You wouldn't get the meme.
I know. That was fantastic because didn't he say, don't talk about me, don't talk to me. She said, who's talking? And that was a great question because, and then he went on with his whole thing. That was just fantastic. I mean, it worked out perfect.
We owe those guys. They beat us in that playoffs to go to the Super Bowl. And they really have had our number with the exception of this last season. So, you guys kind of got screwed in that game last night. So
that was bad. I mean, but I had nothing to be mad about. I mean, we're going to go from 11 losses to 12 losses or stay at 11 losses. That was bad. I mean, there's so many bad calls in that game. And I'm never one to blame the refs because usually things even out.
Yeah.
But oh my God, that was, like 3 game turning plays with bad calls. But
it's pretty tough.
Not because it's not like we missed the playoffs because of that.
So. I know. So, Rod and I will be back next weekend on Saturday evening to talk about the game. Hopefully a good game for the Niners. And then tomorrow, supposedly, Steph Curry is returning from injury. We thought he was coming back on Friday in San Antonio, but it sounds like he'll be available. He's going to be probable tomorrow. Warriors against the Suns at home. And if Steph does play, I think Brian and I are going to jump on after the game. So we'll do a live stream as our show of the week, just talking about the game tomorrow, as well as the game from over the weekend, which was not great. But so just trying to set the schedule for folks who are listening to the network, and Brad and I, we're gonna talk about some January baseball stuff. You know what's actually interesting about this season is in previous seasons, a lot of the top free agents would still be unsigned, but this year, except for Correa, everything's done. And I listened to a podcast from last week. It was I believe it was right after we recorded, or maybe it was it was the same day that we recorded, and I hadn't listened to it. It was Ken Rosenthal's podcast, which I try and listen to whenever he does it. It's a Q&A. They take callers, but he kind of sets the tone for kind of the big story in the beginning. And he was talking about the Correa thing as if he thought it was going to be done last week. And obviously it still is not done. So even, the most clued in guy when it comes to stuff, or one of the, there's a few of them out there. He's one of them. Even, they really have no idea what's going on with this Correa situation. So I guess there's another team involved after the Giants pulled out. So it's the Mets and somebody else. Do we know who that second team is?
We don't. It's probably a Boris secret magic team. It's one of those ones, I think, where he just said, there's another team going. I'm going to put this out in the press. There's another team. So let's get going. I mean, what was it? December? Oh gosh, I want to say like 22nd, 23rd.
I think it was Christmas Eve.
Was it Christmas Eve?
I think so.
And we were supposed to have the presser and everything just kind of.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Okay. It was before that. It was
it was
Tuesday or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the 20th. And so here we are now, January. We're recording this January 9th. And we still don't even have any kind of like Correa's close. They're just 1 year off or 50 million apart. There's not even anything. It's really amazing. I keep waking up every day forgetting that it's even happening because there's just no news. Because sometimes when there's that one big free agent still out there, you wake up in the morning, you check Twitter, and you see if you have any alerts. I'm not even doing that because I'm forgetting each day. That's how long it's been. It's going to be very
whatever happens. And I would imagine it's still going to be the Mets, but think about it if it's not the Mets. How nuts is Twitter and the fan and New York fans, right? Well, I think New York fans will be angry, but they got an embarrassment of riches otherwise. So this was kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. But still, like it's a pretty big deal. You stretch that. This is the thing that the teams don't really account for is just putting your fans through horror. We had to go through it twice, and I still feel like I'm not over it. I still feel angry for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I have some news though.
Okay.
It has been reported by John Heyman that by Shaw, that the Giants will not be in on Trevor Bauer. So we can put that to rest. So there's no ring in our hands going, oh God, please don't sign him, because it would be the opposite with him. It would be, please don't sign him. And we don't.
Well, I hope people don't go into the deep archives of this show, because some of our early shows were like, hey, what about Trevor Bauer?
No, don't go back. Don't go back. Please.
So what do you think about how the Dodgers handled that? Pretty swiftly, right? Like they were just kind of like
could have been swifter, is what I think. I mean, they waited till the last minute and decided, they had the deadline. I think it was like 1:00 on the West Coast. And at like 12:30, they said, we're going to waive him. He's, DFA'd, whatever happened. But they could have done it 3 or 4 days earlier, I think. But
I just wondered if there was like some reasons as far as withholding why they had to wait or whatever. But I just like their message. I thought their message was pretty succinct. Not that I'm here interested in giving the Dodgers any praise for handling anything, but
right.
But I thought it was pretty clean, and I'm sure there are people who feel like he's getting a raw deal, but they said in their investigation that they found enough stuff in there to to believe that the punishment was accurate, and that was like one of the longest suspensions in baseball, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And anytime you get mixed up in anything like that, any kind of hardcore accusations like that, people can think he got a raw deal, but he's still getting paid. I mean, that's the raw deal. As us baseball fans are like, the guy's still getting paid like $22 million to be a dirtbag.
The Players Association, man.
I'm telling you, yeah. I mean, he's protected. He's protected by the Players Association. But he did say, he had put out a statement on January 6th. And he said, following 2 weeks of conversations around my return to the organization, I sat down with the Dodgers leadership in Arizona yesterday, who told me that they wanted me to return and pitch for the team this year. So that's what the Dodgers organization told him, that they wanted him back. And then the next day they said, no, goodbye. I'm sure a lot of the players in the clubhouse, player leaders like Clayton Kershaw, Mookie Betts, they probably talked to them, and Freddie Freeman and said, what do you guys think? And I'm sure they said, that's a distraction that we don't need. We're trying to win a World Series because we haven't won a real World Series since 1988. I'm sure that's what they said, right? They probably said that. Yeah. But I'm sure they said, we don't want this distraction. It's too much. It's too much of a distraction. So, but it sounds like according to Trevor Bauer, the Dodgers brass wanted him back. So it's a big soap opera at this point, but
yeah, it is. But hey, it's news in a time in baseball where there's not a lot of news. So
not.
I was just interested to see something show up in my mentions where I was like, oh, baseball.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this signing that the Giants made today. They signed former Atlanta Braves reliever, who was really good on their World Series team, Luke Jackson. Now, do you know what Luke Jackson's nickname is?
I don't, but I really, really hope it's Luke Action Jackson. Because if it's not, I'm going to have a problem.
It is Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker Jackson. I can go for that too. I'm fine with that.
If you go to his Twitter page, and I think he's going to be a fan favorite when it comes to the Twitter page.
Okay, I'm gonna have to add him right now.
At YABOY77 at your boy 77. Yes. On his profile, you see the jersey with the name Skywalker on the back.
Absolutely beautiful. I love it. All right. He's my new follow. There we go.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Luke Jackson. So here's the deal from Susan Slusser. We actually have breaking news that we're going to get to here in a second. Susan Slusser said the Giants and Luke Jackson agreed to terms on a 2-year major league contract worth $11.5 million. That also includes a club option for the 2025 season. Jackson will earn $3 million in 2023 and $6.5 in 2024. So, they're continuing to make sure that they're not paying a whole lot of money for the team this year. Everything is always the next year. Okay,
but he is coming off of Tommy John.
He is coming off Tommy, and he's probably not playing the full season this year. He's probably
not. So I think that's the lower value.
Yeah, that it makes sense. All right, so if you look at his baseball reference, or maybe you don't want to look at his baseball reference, it is a trippy baseball reference page because he had 1 year of lights out baseball, and that was the year 2021. So he didn't play in 2022. He had the Tommy John last year, and it's 2021. Now, he had a pretty good season in 2019. 3.84 ERA, 9-2 record. His FIP was actually a lot better than his ERA, but his issue seems to be with the walks. In 2021, he in 2019 he was saved 18 games. In 2021, I think he had something like 31 holds. So all of his statistics look fine. 1.98 ERA. 1.162 whip, which was the best whip of his career that was longer than a handful of games. Only gave up 6 hits. Only gave up 0.8 home runs. The walks were up 4 per 9 and 9.9 strikeouts per 9, which is down from his 2019 year when he was striking out an epic 13.1 per 9. So,
and I guarantee you that's what the Giants saw. And I guarantee you that's what the Giants liked, is because they like the high K per 9. Yes. They don't care if you walk batters, as long as you get a good high K per 9.
But I think there was a little bit of luck in that hits per 9 being as low as it was, because the FIP on an ERA of 1.98, the FIP was 3.66. So that is kind of the question mark there. But all of the other stuff looks fantastic. Now, like you said, coming off of Tommy John, that is going to be an issue because he's got to get all that stuff, back. And then hopefully by midseason, it's a little bit reminds me of the Matthew Boyd signing from last year, where he doesn't even play for us and then they trade him as he was kind of coming back. But I think this year, with that second year kind of sunk in, I think we're going to see him on the team this year.
Yeah. I think so. It's going to be exciting. The Giants like the big arms, and they like the strikeouts. And now we've got some, whenever we see Luke Skywalker Jackson, I'm just going to have to say it every time. Because that is absolutely fantastic. So you're going to see Duvall, Jackson, and Taylor Rogers in the back end of the bullpen. That's going to be hard for us this year, isn't it? Taylor Rogers, Tyler Rogers. That's going to be.
And what if they went to trade for Trevor Rogers, which I know.
Oh yes, I know Grant Brisbee wrote about that. Exactly. That would be fantastic. That would be a total nightmare. T. Rogers, 3 T. Rogers. But you've got. I mean, why couldn't the parents go like Tyler Rogers and Carl Rogers? Like mix it up a little bit. But
yeah.
For us. But
okay.
But yeah, they have those 3 guys in the back end of the bullpen, some strikeout guys, some guys who can limit hits, limit home runs. I think that and that's where the Giants kind of missed. And you think of how many games we had last year where a guy like, foreshadowing, Junior Marte came in and walked somebody and then gave up a hit and then got a strikeout and then got a strikeout and then gave up a hit. And you were like, man, can't we just go like 1, 2, 3? When can we go 1, 2, 3 in an inning and not have the stress? So I think the Giants are kind of trying to build up for that. And I like the contract. I really like the contract.
All right. You ready for the breaking news?
I'm ready. Yeah. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Another Susan Sluss. Gosh, she's been working her rear end off.
Look at this.
Susan just reported Brandon Belt will be signing a 1-year deal with the Blue Jays.
No. Wow.
Deal will be announced tomorrow.
That's a tough one for Giants fans. That's a tough one for us, man. How do you feel? How do you feel as, I think when I think of the Belt Wars, I think of you as a 5-star general on the good side of the Belt Wars.
There are 2 lieutenants with me in the Belt Wars. One is as I've mentioned her before, my good friend, Ashley Payne, who unfortunately is not on Twitter very much anymore, but her family is on our Giants Facebook page. Yes. I think like both of her parents and her sister, though, because I've been kicked off of Facebook for who knows how long. I haven't seen any of it. I'm still off of Facebook. They will not give me a reason. They will not return emails. I don't know what's going on. It's pretty lousy customer service, that's for sure. But Ashley Payne was with me in the beginning. Like I sort of kind of jumped on the bandwagon with her just because I saw how many people were frustrated with him. And so we were just kind of like tag teaming all of these people on Twitter. And then the NBC Sports Bay Area zone, Carmen Q, also leading one of the trains on Team Belt. And so the 3 of us, I feel like we were pretty much on top of it when it came to being Team Belt. So as far as how I feel about it, I think I'm happy that Belt kind of was able to have that one really good year during the pandemic, which is it showed basically what he could do when he's healthy. And then, of course, he gets that screwy injury late trying to bunt and ball gets thrown and hits him in the thumb. And last year is just unfortunate. It's just what happens when some of these guys get older. They can't stay. They can't stay without getting these weird dinged up injuries. And we know that he has a bad knee. So all of that is like, hey, he's just an aging player. He has 2 World Series titles. You know, he's been on 2 World Series title teams. So he's had a really good career. Now, I think the question for a lot of Giants fans is, should he have been better than who he actually was? And I think he's probably exactly who he was always going to be. He had like 3 really, really good seasons. He had a couple of like solid seasons, and then he had his bad seasons where he couldn't shake the injuries. So I think he was a really, really good Giant. Maybe at some point if he goes to Toronto on a 1 year, he has a good season and he wants to come back. Maybe the Giants will be like, hey, we have a spot at first. If you want to come back and hang out and retire as a Giant, I could see something like that happen. But happy for him. He can finally go to somewhere where he can DH regularly, because even when he played these last couple of years, he mostly still played first base. He doesn't have to worry about getting dinged up, injured, and such. By playing the field so much, and I hope he can play in some of those short porches in the American League and get a couple extra dingers out of it, right? He doesn't have to play his whole, his home games at a park that's a little bit harder to hit home runs for someone like him.
Brandon Belt playing in Boston is going to be interesting, but playing at Yankee Stadium, at Camden Yards, I mean, that's going to be fun. That's going to be some fun games to watch. And the thing that people always forget and will always thank Brandon Belt for is that when Aubrey Huff had his issues and disappeared, Brandon Belt was there. And so Brandon Belt is a 2-ringer, because anytime you talk about the Giants, anytime from 2008 up to 2014, 2015, how many ringers are they? Brandon Belt's a 2-ringer. Yep. So, I mean, we'll always love him for that. He was on the 2012, 2014 championship teams. Gonna miss him. I love the guy. Everybody gave him crap, but you know what? Defensively, that was the one thing that was overlooked a lot too. Defensively, he was solid at first base. He had some fantastic picks. Definitely going to miss that. I hate to see it. I just hate to see him on the East Coast, though. I was hoping he'd stick around, at least, go to the Rangers with Bochy. But
yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been a blast because we would all have become American League
quasi Texas Rangers fans. Yeah,
quasi Tech, because I've been. And don't say it too loud, but I've always been a quasi Mariners fan and a quasi Guardians fan, Indians back in the day. Mm-hmm. But those are kind of my teams. So if he would have gone to one of those, especially Seattle, I would have been ecstatic. But
yeah, I think you mentioned his defense early in his career when his body and his athletic ability was still there. He was really good at first base. He had a really good arm. And like you said, he could pick it. As the years went by, like these last couple years, he did not have a lot of range there like he did when he was younger. And I think you could just see him sometimes just out there, just going like, and running the bases too, right? Like he's right, never going to be fast, but early in his career, this long-legged dude. And then these last couple years, he's like the slowest guy on the team.
Yeah, and when he ran the bases, you knew something bad could possibly happen. Yeah. And it did. It did in Anaheim. It did in Anaheim. I mean, it did. Yeah, it was just tough to watch. I mean, so now we're looking at Lamont Wade Jr. It's official. I mean, we're looking at Lamont Wade Jr. at first base. And who else can we get at first base? I don't want to see, too much of Wilmer at first base, but I think I think we will. JD Davis could play first base.
Would you rather Wilmer play first base or any other part of the infield, though?
Yeah, first base. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Oh man. Okay, so yeah, it's a sad one, but hey, this is a live show, baby. We had to break the news to everybody who was not paying attention to Twitter. That's okay, right. So let's talk about the trade that the Giants made. Junior Marte, who appeared in 39 games last season, they traded him to the Phillies for left-hander Eric Miller, who pitched 3 years at Stanford. Now, I was trying to figure this out. I couldn't find Miller's options by the time we recorded, so I don't know. Like, why would Philly give up on him if he was like this, a top 10 prospect for them last year, for somebody who the Giants, I don't think that they would even consider a top 15 prospect for them. But Marte throws hard, and he was pretty successful at missing barrels. But I never watched him last year and was like, you know what? You know who's going to be good in 2023? You know who's going to be like, at the back end of the bullpen is Junior Marte. And maybe he will, but just based off of last year, I didn't really see that from him. But yeah, so Miller, he was in AAA all last year and had a really good season at AAA. So I imagine he'll probably start the season in AAA for the Giants. But lefty, throws low 90s, can get it up to, I'll just read the little bio on MLB.com. A legitimate 3-pitch mix gives Miller the chance to start, though he spent most of 2022 and reached AAA pitching out of the bullpen. He tends to sit in the low 90s with his fastball, though he's up to 97, especially in shorter stints. He's always had a very good changeup, killing spin with it effectively, and he's worked to tighten up his breaking ball. A low 80 slider that can miss bats. The biggest thing holding Miller back, and here we go again. You said that the Giants really don't mind about this because they think that they can fix it. His ability to throw strikes. He has worked to incorporate improvements to his delivery, cleaning up his arm stroke, but he still struggled to repeat it and battled his control through 2022. Doesn't have pinpoint command to pitch in relief, and his stuff should continue to tick up in shorter stints.
Yeah, and the Giants haven't had a hoss in a while. This guy's 6'5", 240, and they always go light, right?
Yeah.
This is on MILB.com. He's 6'5", 240, so he's probably 6'5", 260 maybe. But yeah, he's a strike thrower. He does throw hard, but yeah, he does. Last year, 48 and a third. 31 walks, that's kind of rough, but 62 Ks and 48 and a third for a reliever, that's what you want, limited to 39 hits. They already have him in a, on the Sacramento River Cats when you go to MILB.com as well. But looking at, some of the comments from Phillies fans, because that's how you can always tell, is when a trade goes down.
Yeah.
The other team announces it on Twitter. You go look at those comments. Some people believe we got fleeced, and I'm not sure how, because that's their number 7 prospect, and we're giving you Junior Marte. But so, and that's the whole thing, is Marte was a 40-man roster guy. Excuse me, and they had to clear a spot for Luke Skywalker Jackson, and so in order to do that, you've got to trade a 40-man guy in Junior Marte rather than pass him through waivers.
Or maybe they did try and pass him, and then Philly was like, "Hey, we'll trade for him."
It's possible. And so, make that deal. Marte, I think he had one of the better, for relievers, he had one of the better low barrel rates.
Yeah.
And so I think Philly fans are kind of latching onto that as well. But, he also not only misses bats, but he also misses the strike zone. So you do have to deal with that.
Now, that's a way to miss bats.
Yeah, exactly. Get your barrel rate down.
By the way, Belt 1 year, $9.3 million to sign.
Well, good for him.
Blue Jays.
Good for him. If he can get back on track and he could play in 120, 130 games, he could still stick around for another year or two after that.
All right, before we get to our conversation about Jeff Kent and just the Hall of Fame in general, which the Hall of Fame is it's on our bad side right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we'll see if it can win us back. But last week I mentioned about one of the things I wanted to do for 2023 is learn more about Scotch and get into Scotch. So I got some Buchanan's Deluxe, which is I believe it's a blended Scotch whiskey. And a lot of times if I go to the grocery store, I'm just gonna pick up what's at the grocery store. And this was one of the ones where it's like, oh, I want this, and it's like, hey, how come this box is empty? Oh, we have to go get it, and then we got to get it behind the locker. And so I was like, it's not even that expensive, guys. It was like $35 or something. Why is it in the locker? Maybe it's one that people steal often for some reason. I don't know. But so I picked that up today. So that's what I'm sipping on right now. And like I said, I have coached myself, and I think it's just easier. I think that the flavor of bourbon is probably a little easier on the palate, and I'm trying to train the Scotch palate there. So I have it with some ice, so it waters it down a little bit, which I like. And yeah, it's nice. When you drink Scotch, you know that you're drinking Scotch, which I like that because it's like, hey, like, you're not just gonna swallow this thing in 3 gulps like some bourbons that you drink sometimes. So
yeah, and I'm with you too on Scotch, and that's why I like Scotch for special occasions. I like it for if I'm going to put on like a really good Sinatra record, I will pour a Scotch and I'll kind of stick around the music. I won't go too far from the speakers, and I'll kind of hang out near it, listen to some Sinatra, listen to some jazz, drink some Scotch. One of my favorite things, I used to do this all the time. I haven't done it in a long time, but Trader Joe's has a fairly decent blended Scotch.
Oh.
I'm not sure who they collaborate with, but it's been around for years. And the bottle used to be like, honestly, it used to be like 15 or $16. And it was really good. And I would take a glass, usually around like this size here, fill it up with some ice cubes and just pour that over it and let it just kind of mix with the ice, sip on that while listening to some good music. Probably poured way too much, more than I should have, but but that was a good one. I like blended scotches. I still think my favorite are the smoky peaty, like the Lafroig. Those are just, I mean, they'll grab you and you're like, oh my God. So,
yeah.
Tonight I went with, I like my ginger ale and, speaking of Trader Joe's, ginger ale and Trader Joe's Kentucky's Best bourbon.
There you go.
It's like my favorite mixing bourbon. So I told my wife,
Kentucky's Best, huh?
Kentucky's Best is what it's called. And it's a Trader Joe's brand.
Crystal goes to Trader Joe's all the time, like at least twice a week. So I may have her pick some up.
Yeah, if you want a good blender, I really like that one because it's up there. I think it's 46 proof, 45 proof. And it's a really good mixer with ginger ale. So I poured it and I don't have much left. And so I told my wife, I said, yeah, this is a mixer and so next time you go to Trader Joe's, if you can grab a bottle, she goes, you have so much up there right now. Like, can you go through I said, no, I'm not going to mix like the piggyback with ginger ale. There's no way I'm doing that. So that was a whole thing.
There you go. I like it. Okay. So as I'm getting tweets from people who are very sad for me that Brandon Belt is gone. Somebody said, Jesse, who old school Twitter Giants person, I've seen him at games before over the years. He tweeted at me. He said, "Goodbye, ladies, sad face." Because I used to tweet out the photo of Brandon Belt dressed as Michael Jackson Thriller, and it said, "Hello, ladies." That was the running joke.
That was a fun one. Whenever he hit a bomb, I always because I do some of the stuff during the games on Twitter, but as soon as Brandon Belt does something, I know to like I know it's coming from you, and I know that's your thing. I'm like, hey, it's got this one.
Yeah, if you check out our Twitter account during the season, at Thompson to Clark, you'll see, just click in the media and you'll just see a bunch of photoshops of Belt, my cousin's husband, Dan. He did all the photoshops for me a long time ago, and I just keep using the same ones. So
they're classics, man.
All right, let's talk about this Jeff Kent situation here. So I forget the guy's name. Is it Ryan Thibodeau or something? Peter Thibodeau? Somebody Thibodeau. I think it's Ryan. Has a baseball Hall of Fame tracker where people report their voting to him, and he creates a giant spreadsheet. Now, he doesn't get 100% of engagement, so he doesn't know for sure, but he has, a good number of ballots, and he's tracking who has a good chance to make it into the Hall of Fame. Now, as of today, the ones that he has, there are 2 people on this ballot who are over the 75% mark in his tracking. That doesn't mean that they're going to make it because there's still tons of other ballots that are unchecked. But Todd Helton at 80.9% and Scott Rowland at 82.3% look like they are good, maybe the best bets for this year. Now, Billy Wagner, according to this tracker, is at 73 of the ballots that he has. Gary Sheffield, actually, 68.1 in his 9th year, which is kind of amazing. And I was just kind of looking at our good friend Jeff Kent, Andrew Jones as well, 71.6. But our good friend Jeff Kent, sitting in his 10th year, last year was at 32.7%. And this year, according to this tracker, he's at 50, which is actually kind of cool because, we talked about this last year with Bonds and Clemens. They used to keep these guys on for 15 years, and then they changed it to 10, I think specifically because of Bonds and Clemens. And so that hurts somebody like Jeff Kent, right, who's kind of growing every single year. He's growing. His chances are getting better. But, this is his last year. He's more than likely not going to get to that 75% mark. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to just go dig into Jeff Kent's career and sort of where he sits with other second basemen who have been really good. And in doing this exercise, I realized that he doesn't rank as well as I thought he did. And so I kind of get it. If you're using all of the statistics and the analytics and the sabermetrics and all that stuff, I get why he's kind of a 40 to 50% ballot guy. But before we get into that, what do you think about his chances?
You know what? I don't think they're great, but I honestly think they should be better than they're forecasting. Because if Todd Helton's going to get in, possibly, you got to look at Todd Helton. He's never won an MVP. And we're talking about a first baseman, who put up gaudy numbers. He has less home runs in his career than Jeff Kent. And he's been to 5 All-Star games. Jeff Kent has an MVP award. Jeff Kent has been to 5 All-Star games. Silver Slugger Award 4 times. I really honestly, and second base, for the numbers that he put up and to win an MVP, I think he should get in. That's what I think. But I mean, forecasting the numbers, he's going to be kind of right on the cusp.
Yeah. So the numbers that he excels at, you mentioned it, the most valuable player award, he won it in 2000, though some people will say that he won it just because they didn't want to give it to Barry again. But he had a fantastic year, right? And it's smack dab in the middle of the steroid era. And as far as we know, Jeff Kent has never been hinted at being on the list of players who took steroids. So that's something in his favor.
And we know that the voters also really like to award those guys.
Yeah.
If it's in the middle of the steroid era and they hit bombs and they had really good years, they like to kind of single those guys out and say, you get in the Hall of Fame because you were a good boy. So.
Exactly. So the other thing that he actually fares very well in is when you talk about MVP. So Jeff Kent had 4 top 10 finishes in MVP. So that puts him, in some pretty good company for players in the Hall of Fame ranking. Only Robinson Cano and Jose Altuve have had at least 4 in the top 10. Cano had 6. And they're not in because obviously they're not eligible yet. Cano, we'll see what happens with Cano. He got suspended for steroids, so I'm not sure how he's going to. But Altuve, I'm going to guess is going to be a Hall of Famer at some point. But so Kent fits right there. Like everybody above him and a bunch of players below him are all in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. The ones where he doesn't look fantastic in are War 7, which is sort of like a amalgam of like his top 7 seasons with War. Right. You would think that someone who won an MVP would fare a little bit better here, but the average of Hall of Famers at second base finish around where Frankie Frisch and Roberto Alomar fit in War 7, which is about if we're ranking top second basemans of all time, and we're going all the way down, that the average of Hall of Famers would be right on the 14th level with 44.4 War 7. Kent is at 35.8, and he's at rank 27th. Now, there are Hall of Famers below him, Tony Lazzeri, Johnny Evers, and Red Schoendienst. So we're talking about, back in the day. Yeah. Guys. But, the people who are ahead of him, there's only a couple who are kind of ranked near him, Bobby Doerr and Nellie Fox. So that it doesn't look good there for Kent. And then if you look at the Jaws number, which is the combination of career and 7-peak War, for comparison's sakes, the average of the 20 Hall of Famers at second base, the average is a 57. For Kent, he sits at 45.6. So those are the two numbers that they kind of normalize him in a way that makes him maybe look not as great as the MVP and the rankings and the MVP voting, the top 10 did. So I think it'll be tough. Those stats make me look at him a little bit differently. And maybe he's kind of like he's a cusp guy. He's a guy who's like right on the cusp. Now, the guys who are going to get in coming up, Chase Utley, his numbers look fantastic in comparison. I don't like him that much because he was kind of a dick, though.
Yeah, kind of.
Jonathan Sanchez was kind of a dick to him too. And, yeah. But I did used to like to call him Chutley. That's what I used to call him.
Chutley. That's appropriate. That's appropriate for a guy like Chase Utley. Chutley.
Yeah, but Utley, Pedroia, Kinsler are guys who are not eligible yet, who are ahead of Kent on lists like this. So kind of interesting way to look at things. Unfortunately, doesn't look like he's going to get in this year. And then we talk about the committee that elected Crime Dog earlier or late last year. And I think that's in 3 years they'll do that again. So maybe he'll have another shot at that point. But kind of a surly guy, right? Like I know writers didn't necessarily warm up to him because he didn't warm up to them very much. But very interesting to see how they treat him, 3 years down the line when maybe we forget how he was with some of these guys.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way to elect players into the Hall of Fame. There just has to be going forward. I don't know what the answer is, but man, it is so rough to see because I mean, we're like I said, we're at the point where it's like Scott Rowland and Todd Helton. No knock against the guys. They're good players. I don't think they're Hall of Fame worthy players. Because again, when you look at position wise, there's other players who are out of the Hall of Fame who are just lights out, great players, but because of stigmas and everything else that happened, here we are with Todd Helton and Scott Rowland. Not saying that they're going to get in, but I'm just saying,
yeah, they have a good shot of getting in.
Yeah, they have a good shot.
Yeah. So good luck to Jeff, And you know where Brandon Belt sits on War 7 for first basemen of all time.
Where's this?
He broke the top 100.
Okay.
He's sitting 97 ahead of John Kruk and Aubrey Huff, who you already mentioned.
Yeah, there you go. That's all we care about. I don't really care about anything else, but as long as he's ahead of Aubrey the Thong Huff, that's fine with me, man. And John Kruk was a great one to watch. You know, when he was always one of those phenom players where we're watching him as kids going, how's this big fat guy just raking and hitting like 330 and battling it out with Will Clark every year for a batting title? That was
remember in the All-Star game where Randy Johnson scared the lights out of him. Yeah.
Put on the helmet the other way and took the other side of the went right-handed. That was fantastic.
All right. Well, you know, we got a show out of thin air today, so that was good.
Yeah.
And we'll see if the Giants do anything else. They still have a ton of money to spend to add players to their roster. And like you said, one thing that you said that was really interesting is that if they do trade for everyday players or players who are going to help them next year, they are probably then going to trade somebody else off of the 40 man because they need the room. So it might be a combination. Right, it might be a combination deal where you sign somebody, then you're going to trade somebody off of the 40. So all right.
And well, before we go, let's just take a quick look. So Wednesday, March 8th is the start of the World Baseball Classic. So we've got that coming up. So that's
2 months.
So that's something. Yeah, 2 months. Well, we're close to like a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
We're gonna cover that.
Absolutely. Wednesday, March 8th, we've got Cuba and the Netherlands and Panama on Chinese Taipei. USA doesn't play until they're a little bit later. They don't play until March 11th. So Saturday, March 11th, they play in Phoenix. It's a 6 p.m. game on a Saturday night. So United States against Great Britain. So that one's going to be fun. A Saturday night game to kick it off for the U.S. I'm looking forward to it because the U.S. has kind of put together a really good team. And maybe as we get closer, we'll kind of look at that team, go down the roster. And it's going to be fun, man. I'm really excited. I'm very excited.
I want to buy some Team USA gear, like the shirt that you were wearing last week. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. And Baseballism is the official I guess, I don't know what you call it. Clothier. Is that that's a fancy word. Clothier of the USA baseball team. And so I got a shirt from there. That's really cool hats. I would imagine at like Shields and Dick's and all those places, they probably carry them too. So
yeah, absolutely. I wonder if they'll have a Logan Webb Team USA jersey that we could buy.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Okay, cool. So we'll be back next week. Talking Giants baseball, and yeah, so hopefully some stuff will happen, and we can continue. Even if it doesn't, we'll find stuff to talk about.
Oh yes,
it's not hard for us.
Oh yes, we'll talk more bourbon. We'll talk more scotch.
Exactly.
We got it all covered. Maybe we'll have some Correa news by then.
I know, and that's what's probably going to happen as we get closer to the start of the season. Is we'll probably talk a little bit more national news than we generally talk about because we're covering the Giants and there's always stuff to talk about. We'll probably lean a little bit towards more national stuff like the World Baseball Classic. So, all right. For Brad, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.